Welcome to By the Cottage Hearth with Dana Maree. I'll be taking you through the journey we make as healers, the impact we're yet to make, and the words to use to describe it. Come on in. Hello, welcome back to the Hearth. Today we're going to be speaking with Dania Foster from Dania Foster Naturopathy, who's both a naturopath and an energetic healer, which is exactly what I want to be talking about, how we can bring those together. Hello, Dania. Welcome to the Hearth.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No worries. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. We run in the same circles, I feel like, all over the internet, so it was inevitable we were going to have this today. And Dani was so wonderful. She even wore a rune in my honor today. So I'm just going to point that out, how that is how you get brownie points. I'm not going to lie. So just to kick off, why don't you tell us the work that you do as a healer?
Okay, so as a healer, I felt this connection with nature since childhood, I would say, like spending a lot of time in the bush, which was next to my house, and communing with plants, and just really feeling connected to nature, feeling that real energetic pull to that. And from that connection, it felt like there was this extension into my body where I could use that. And I remember getting bullied at school because I used to put my hands on my body to heal
Yeah.
and do that to my friends. And I used to run women's circles for the girls in lunchtime and do little
You
circles
were
and things
ahead of
like
your
that.
time. Yeah.
So I was doing this in the playground in the gully. That was my little hangout. And yeah, and then I grew and then I found tarot and I started delving into the deeper shadow work as a teenager and doing deeper inner work through that. And then I found the Reiki
Yeah.
certifications and I was like, oh, that gives me that label, that name to put to what I'm actually doing when I'm channeling this energy. So I got the certifications and went to the Reiki shares and everything like that. But I was a bit of a rebel through that because it never really, they would tell me to do it the certain way that the steps are laid out, and I'd try and do it that way and nothing would happen. It was
Yeah.
just empty for me. But then I would sort of shut them out and just go back into myself. And I could feel this energy surging. And I was like, you just have to do what they say, get the ticks in the boxes, and just do it your own way. And that's really what it came through from. So, although I have all of those Reiki master teacher certifications, I really have that ick when it comes to saying I'm a Reiki master, because it's like, I'm an energetics therapist. I'm an energetics healer because this is just energy, and this energy is open to everybody if we just allow ourselves access to nature. And when we commune with nature, we can open up to this energy. So it was when I had a bit of a stage of falter in my early years as an early teenager, where I was put on the study path to become a vet. And so I was at uni to do that, really into animals. I was a horse girl. I was going to be a horse big animal vet, but I just couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't done. And I used to walk past the Australian College of Natural Medicine every day when I'd go to uni. I used to catch the tram in Melbourne, and I'd go past this Australian College of Natural Medicine. I was just so pulled to it. I ended up getting off the tram one day and just walking in there and signing up to a degree for herbal medicine. And I was like, this is a 4-year degree. What are you doing? You're already
Let's
in a
just do
degree.
it. Yeah.
And then I had to go to my other uni and like unenroll, pull myself out. And they were like, do you want to defer? And I was like, no, I'm done here. Like, this is over. I am
I
fully
love
there.
that.
And then I went home and had to tell my parents, and they were like, what are you doing? Like, what is this herbal medicine? And I was just like, I just have to do it. And I felt like I was like, I can't explain to them. I'm like, I followed an oak tree here. Like, I can't
How do I
explain where
explain
this has
that?
got, but you just have to follow these steps. And
Yeah.
then, once I was in the College of Natural Health and studying naturopathy, it all just made sense to me, because there were things that I did through my play with my brothers and sisters out in the backyard, like making poultices and putting them on
Yeah.
ant bites and things like that. It was just natural knowledge for me, and it just flowed through me so easily, to the fact where, you know, trust, like these were my early 20s, they were party years, believe me, and I would not study for an exam and go in there and be like, I know this, it's
Yeah,
just in
that
me. And
natural
you
knowledge.
could just tap into this. And it's interesting because I felt like there was one particular exam where I did this past life regression to recall this information, because I was like, it's in here somewhere. I'm just going to do this past life regression in the middle of this
Look
exam
through
room
it. Yeah.
and just be like, put whatever comes out on this paper.
Yeah.
And it worked.
That's
And
beautiful.
it just is like every step of the way, when I trusted that path, was like, this is exactly where you need to be.
Yeah. And I think that part, I want to come back to you saying that when you went into the Reiki side of things, you couldn't follow the rules. Like you had this trusting. And the reason why I want to come back to that is because I feel like that is such a common story. And I want to say out loud for anyone listening that if that's how you feel, you're not a failure at being a Reiki master, because I relate to it. I think so many of us do relate, that you go to this course and it pulls you in and it draws you to it because you know that that healing and that energy is what you're being pulled to, but that maybe the structure or the modality or the method that they're teaching might not feel right. So that trust in yourself to be like, I will bring that knowledge and that information in, but it needs to become a part of this cauldron, this pot that I'm mixing up, and I'm gonna chuck all
Yeah.
those pieces in and do it my own way. And I very much believe that's how we should, as healers, be practicing.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that I say to my clients, because this is something that I do in my longer mentorship programs, is I teach women how to become their own healer and the healer for their family. And when I am mentoring them to step into this role of priestess and channeling for their family, it is all about trusting what comes through for you, because how this energy, this magic comes through for me is not the only way. It's not the right way for you. So I want you to connect in with how is it showing up for you.
Yes.
And like taking, for example, the Reiki symbols, like as soon as I would try and tune into drawing that Reiki symbol in my head, I would lose my connection. But as soon as I connected in with moss and earth and that dirt scent, it was like, I am there. That is
There.
that is me. There's
Yeah.
seed in this. That's it.
Yeah, and that's something like, as a Volfa, as a Norse practitioner, my career path hasn't been advertised or the thing, for a really, really long time. So when you're being pulled to this thing that no one else is doing, that you don't have an instruction manual, you don't have a course or assignment that you can do, it's really hard to trust yourself and what you're feeling and what these messages that you're downloading, this calling that you have. It's really hard to trust that in the moment,
Absolutely.
but you can't get away from it. Like, it'll keep coming back even if you're not logically understanding why.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah, to
And
the
you just
point where
it's
you
like,
just walk in and sign up for a 4-year degree and go, well, I'm going to do
yes,
this.
it's like, what's your backup plan? It's like, I've got no backup plan. This is just me. This
Yeah,
is it.
I love that you've said that, because I've been asked that as well. They're like, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, I'll figure it out. Like, if something happens, I don't have a
This is
fallback.
just
Like,
gonna work. It's gonna
this is,
happen.
yeah, it's going to happen. I love that so much. What do you find is the most difficult thing when talking about your work, as someone who brings together your background in energetic healing and with the like herbalism, physical side of naturopathy?
I think it's feeling legit, because I have a lot of scientific, evidence based knowledge from my degree. So, and this is where I'm like, of course, and I don't need that, which is what it's like. I don't need that proof. It's like somebody else's job is to go out there and do the research and prove that, this mushroom is beneficial for my health. I'm just going to be looking like that. That's what I need right now. And
Yeah,
be like, this is what you need right now. And it's great to have that evidence-based research to back up that traditional knowledge,
yeah,
that wisdom. But also the hard part is me just going, I just trust this is what we need to do. And then having that research overhanging as well. Like I don't want to be too caught up in all of that clinical side of this healer, but also I don't want to lose that intuitive trusting side. So that's where I'm at in that balance, is trying to say that I'm an intuitive healer without sounding like I'm just pulling shit out of my ass, if
Yep.
I'm allowed to swear on this podcast.
It's me,
But
you know you are.
so yeah, it's like I don't want to just be like
Yeah.
just saying shit for the sake of it, being all flaky.
Yeah.
I want people to trust what I'm saying. And so it's that balance of, well, if you need the proof, here is some studies, but like I don't
You
need that,
don't
so it
need
doesn't
it.
mean that to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Um
I think with the work that you do with the mentorship program is so beautiful, because the role that uh, the mother or the woman in the household, going back to a time where those gender roles were very defined and specific, you were the nurturer of that family. And I think that's almost an underappreciated role that we just kind of shove in between school runs, or I know you're a homeschooling mum, but between the educating and the eating, like the feeding your kids and you're running around doing everything else, that little medicine cabinet that you call on is so underappreciated and underutilized, I think, in a modern role, whereas it used to be such a huge, if you're looking back as an ancestral learning, that was such a crucial part to our role as the healer in the family, that I don't think many people think about that aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's where like the role of matriarch of the family,
Oh,
when we
yeah.
were a matriarchal society, where we would look to the women for the budgeting, we would look to the women for the judgment, we would look for the women for the wisdom beyond the veil of what's happening under the surface in the shadow aspect of this. And that's where this is why it's called the Priestess of Motherhood, is because this is where you get to stand in that role in your power and be like, I have all of the answers that you need. This is that building of confidence, and this is where she is the true matriarch of her family. And like, even the husband, he does his role. He has his role, and it sounds like I can get beaten for that, but whatever, because this is what works for me in that balance, is that to step up into that matriarch, you take on that power. There is a different form of power when it comes from matriarchy to patriarch, of the family. And I think that we need both to be balanced. And it doesn't mean it has to be a man and a woman. It's just both. We need both.
Yeah. And I understand that almost hesitancy to say it, because, you know, I might get crucified for saying this, but as someone who works with Frigg, who is the Norse goddess of motherhood and marriage and domestic arts, I, as someone who's neurospicy, who's divorced and co-parents my children 50-50 with my ex-husband, I struggled so much with the idea of even taking on that role, because I went, well, no, I'm a strong, independent woman. I don't want to be stay-at-home mum. I don't want to do this. And then I came back to this space of, well, okay, I'm someone who wants to nurture and support my family. I want to, as someone who's got, you know, a background in naturopathy and herbal medicine, I want to have that as part of my family practices. I want to educate my children. I want to have spirituality throughout that. I'm someone who sews. So as my devotion with Frigg strengthened, I found this connection beyond that fear of being locked into an identity as the submissive woman that I think it's been pulled into, back to a time where it wasn't an act of submission, it was an act of contribution to the household. And I think
honor as well.
Yeah, like
it was honored.
Yeah, women who died in childbirth, you've got the same standing as someone who's going to Valhalla. Like you died contributing to your society. And I think it's hard when you look at it as a patriarchal society we're in now. It's almost hard to say, I want to be someone who contributes to my family in this way, because you don't want to do it in a patriarchal way, because the society we envision when we say that is very much a matriarchal one, where the information, the wisdom, the way we're contributing to our family is definitely from a different standpoint. So I wanted to pull that out, because I understand that almost fear of being crucified for saying something like that. But I think there's so much power in it, it shouldn't be brushed over. So for anyone feeling that way, especially if you're like a homeschooling mum or a single mum who's doing all of the roles, you know, there's so much power in that motherhood and that partnership and that keeping a household, like homemaking. That was a word that I resisted for so long as a homesteader. I was like, I don't want to be a homemaker. I'm not a submissive woman. I'm not. But here I am completely putting my hand up saying that is not how it is. That is not how it has to be. So I love that empowerment that you bring to that role, that reminder that we can be so much more and we have so much more to offer in that role.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. So, what do you think your journey has, or how your journey has impacted the way that you work with your clients? Your own role as a mother, as a wife, do you think that that's kind of impacted the way that you work with your clients?
Yeah, it's a really interesting path because when I started off, I was very much hand in hand with naturopathy and energy because I was really young. I didn't have a lot of responsibilities. I was really wrapped up in my magic and my practices.
Yeah.
And so they both went hand in hand. Like in my heart, I was that healer. I worked with plant medicine. I did energy work. It all was together. I started off at the college that was very old school naturopathy,
Yeah.
and that was, my heart was in the right space. And then I moved across the country to, because I met my husband and he lived across the country, so I moved away from my family and went to live with him and tried to study and work full time to support myself out of home and party, let's be honest. And it all sort of fell apart
Yeah.
from there. And I tried to be normal because I didn't have any friends besides him. He was the only one I
Yeah.
knew. So I tried to be normal and I kept my practice to my little table. And then I tried to make my table, my little altar in my room, look
Yeah.
more normal and
Yeah.
look less conspicuous. And it all just got smaller and smaller and smaller. Moved house a few times and things got left in boxes. My books didn't get put out. All of these things got smaller and smaller. I dropped out of school to work because I needed more money.
Yeah.
All of these things. So I say this is the time when I put myself in a box where I didn't access that part of myself. I put my magic in a storage box.
Yeah.
And then I had my first child, and then I fell into depths of postnatal depression and that, who the fuck am I?
Yeah.
What is going on here? And
Yeah.
my child, she is still really highly sensitive, neurospicy. We have not gone down the path of formal diagnoses because we don't need that. We are self-diagnosed in this
Yeah.
house, um but it's very clear. And I had to really say, like, tune in to myself and be like, what does she need from me? And
Yes.
I took her to other healers because I didn't trust myself. And a kinesiologist told me, oh, this is weird. The only healing that's coming up that she'll accept is Reiki. I was like, oh, really? I'll
That's
have to
funny.
pull that back out of the box. It's like, I do that.
Yeah.
I used to. So I started practicing again. And then I did a bit more research into what was going on for her. So we had to do this whole gut healing thing. And I was like, we ended back. I was like, I have to re enroll in my studies. I have to get back into this. It was just,
Yeah.
she was the catalyst to put me back on my path. And from there, it's been that building back into myself and trusting my magic again
Yes.
while I was studying, because it took me 9 years to finish my degree whilst mothering and homeschooling, because none of my children, I've got three now, have been to school. They've all been home with
Yeah.
me whilst
Congratulations.
studying. Thank you. So it's been a bit of a ride,
Yeah.
and it took me 9 years to get there. And I think that the college had changed a lot. The degree has changed a lot from when I started. So it's very clinicalized now. So it's really drilling into you how important, your functional testing and your research is. And I wholeheartedly agree because it shows us so much, and it can save a whole lot of time when doing the healing work because it's so much more efficient.
Yeah.
But it's also, I don't want to lose the roots to our traditions and
Yes.
trusting our traditional knowledge and wisdom that's held from
Yeah.
so many centuries ago. So it's really balancing that. And throughout the whole time when I was studying, I was working as the energy healer, doing Reiki
Yeah.
healings and meditation guidance for mums and kids, and teaching mums how to be the energy healer or the conduit of energy for their family.
Yeah.
Um, so it's sort of been that wave of starting off really solid in both groundings, and then um, just sort of moving one to the other has been sort of like a balancing act through the last few years. And now that I've graduated, it's like I'm allowed to use this naturopathic wisdom in my business, whereas before my business was all just energy, tarot
Yeah.
readings and Reiki healings and meditation guidance. And now I can use this naturopathy as well, and it's bringing that wisdom on board and finding the footholds of where that clinical studies fit
Yeah.
around my energy. It's
Yeah.
really interesting to see how it's playing out.
Yeah. And I love that so much because it's almost, we've gone through that period where we had the traditional roots based kind of healing practices. And then we've gone into this very masculine idea of everything must be clinical and clean and white and pharmaceutical. And then we're coming back to this rediscovery. It's almost like that evolution of bringing them together. And it's been absolutely beautiful to see, you know, as someone who uses both personally as well. So I completely understand, you know, you have that balancing act of which one am I going to lean on for this particular treatment.
Yeah.
But it's been amazing to see how it's evolved, and I think it's really exciting because now you're looking at a society that is recognizing the need for both. The resources that are there, like even as a kid who grew up pagan, the resources that were there are not what my kids have access to. The books that are on the shelf, the TV shows that are talking about, you know, that pagan kid at school, like that is not how, that wasn't my lived experience. So I think now
Mine
as a
either.
healer in this time period, the resources that are going to come about in the next, you know, 12 months, 5 years, 10 years are going to be so different because it's that evolution of bringing both together that we haven't seen before.
Absolutely. And it just reminds me, like, from our studies, we're taught the therapeutic order, right? So, and this is why I find that energy is so important, because in the therapeutic order, it's like first we remove the burdens to cure. So, what's getting in the way? And so much of the time, that's energy.
Yeah.
So much of the time, that's your energy, it's your mindset, that's your past like your patterns and your conditioning and the stories that you've
Yes.
carried in your bones. And so if we can get to that first, sometimes we can clear out of the way. But if you've lived with that for so long and it's become gone through those levels to become a pathological condition,
Yeah.
then we need to sort of get down into, like, let's just get some nutraceuticals in there and build it up from there. Sometimes if we can get somebody, this is why I love working with kids, we can just like twinge their energy, like just shift it a little bit and move it out, then we can get them at the beginning of before they tumble into having
A
so many things.
lifelong conditioning. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that so
exactly.
much. Yes. Well, one last question that I want to ask, because I love hearing people's insight from this aspect. What is your impact or legacy goal? What do you want to leave behind?
What just comes through intuitively as wisdom is that I want to be that teacher and empower women who can then empower their children. And that's the legacy for me, is that if I can, this is why I home educate as well, is to be able to pass down this wisdom and share that with other women who pass it down to their children and allow that to continue. And I think that is huge.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely beautiful. And my kids are definitely a motivating factor for my own spiritual practices, my own business practices. That idea of we have so many generational trauma cycles that we're continuing. It would be really lovely to like pass on a cycle that was, you know, productive and healing and empowering rather than something toxic for a change.
Yeah.
So I think that is really powerful. That's an absolutely beautiful legacy to leave behind.
Thank you.
Well, it's been absolutely wonderful speaking with you. For anyone who wants to know more about Dania's mentorship, the priestesshood of motherhood, Instagram is definitely the best place to follow you. You put amazing stuff. Your reels are fantastic. I admire your capacity to show up and create that content. So I'll make sure that I put her handle in the show notes and everything else, so you can click through and learn more about her.
Absolutely. Come say hi. I'd love to have a chat with you.
Yes. Thank you so much. And
thank you for having me.
I will definitely have to have you back on. I think we have a lot that we could probably ramble on continuously. All right. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of By the Cottage Hearth with me, your host, Dana Maree. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow on whatever platform you're on to be notified of new episodes. And you can also follow me on By the Cottage Hearth on Facebook and Instagram. Check out show notes for any links or freebie goodies that I might have going at the time. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next episode. Keep healing.